Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about the display list in Flash. Now the display list is a very important concept when we look at the graphical elements of Flash. I've created this display objects FLA file. So previously I created a simple circle symbol, but let's just delete that one and let's start from scratch. You would have your Flash program set up differently. I've got my library down the bottom, so I've got everything down the bottom and I've got the stage up the top. That works for me. You might have something else that works better for you. Okay, so I'm going to grab the oval tool and just draw a circle there. Well, close to a circle. Okay, right click and I'm going to convert that to a symbol, and I'm just going to call it, my name is my circle. And we'll just leave it as a movie clip symbol. So you would have seen this last year, but the registration is important here. So by default, the registration or the origin point is in the top left. So when we refer to symbols and other graphical elements in Flash and ActionScript, just got to remember that the 0 point for a particular symbol is in the top left. So rather than in the middle or elsewhere, it's in the top left is the registration point. Okay, before we go on, we're going to click here, ActionScript linkage, export for ActionScript. Now, we want to associate a symbol with a ActionScript class. We didn't do this last year, but you can add extra functionality to your symbols using ActionScript code. So, by default, it's put in the name that we gave up here as the class name, but we just want to modify that because we always want our classes to begin with a capital letter to be consistent. So we've changed that to my circle is the class name, and the name up here is my circle. So click OK now, and yes, it's giving us another error message or warning message about the class not existing, so just click OK to that. So we've got our circle symbol on the stage. Now, if we go to our library, we'll also see down the very bottom here, we've got our my circle, and we've got a linkage here, which is my circle. So we've linked this symbol in the library to the my circle class. Now what we want to do now is just delete that from the stage because we're going to be adding it back to the stage just using ActionScript. So delete that, but it's still in our library. Okay, let's go to some code. I wrote this up earlier, but I'm going to be adding comments along the way to explain it. So we've seen the package statement. We've got our movie clip. This class here is display objects. So back in our Flash file, under properties, I've moved it now. Okay, it's down here now. So we've associated the display objects AS file, this ActionScript file, with our Flash file. We've got it here, and it extends movie clip. So that's why we imported this one. We've got two other import statements. Because we're going to be, in this class, we're going to be working with timers. So we need to import this timer class and also this timer event class. So we need the timer event imported so that when a timer goes off, an event is created, and we want to run some code when that timer goes off. I've got a long multi-line comment here. Every Flash program has a display list containing one. So a display list contains three things. A stage, so everyone knows about the stage, which is actually a special type of display object container, which we'll get to shortly. It contains display objects, such as sprites and movie clips, and also contains display object containers. So a display object container may be a display object itself, but it can also contain other display objects, so other sprites, movie clips, etc. So three things in the display list: the stage, Then you've got display objects, which are like sprites and movie clips, and then you've got display object containers, which may be a sprite or a movie clip, but they also may contain other sprites, movie clips, and other graphical elements. So just a little bit of theory, just to keep in mind. So the rest of the class, we've created a variable here. So private var myCircle, and the class of this variable, or the type of this variable, is the myCircle class. So we go back to our library. Well, we created the myCircle, and we linked it to an ActionScript file, which contained a class called myCircle. So we're actually going to create an instance of the myCircle. This is our constructor because it's got the same name as the class. So the very first thing we do in our constructor is we create an instance of myCircle. So myCircle equals new myCircle. Next line is where we add myCircle to the stage. So I'll make a comment about that. So add myCircle to the stage. So this .addChild. So our class display object is a display object container, and we're going to add another display object to our class, and our class is on the stage. So myCircle will be added to the stage in 2 steps. We've then got a trace statement which says added circle. So we want to keep a track of what's going on. That's why we put in this trace statement. It's very useful. It's very useful for debugging. So line 21, this is where we're working with a timer class. So remember, we imported a few classes to do with timers, the timer and the timer event class. So we're going to create a timer. So var to create a variable. So myTimer, the type of myTimer is a timer class, and then we say new timer, and in brackets, so we're creating a new instance of a timer, we've got 3000, 1. So what the 3000 means, the timer works in milliseconds, so 3000 milliseconds is 3 seconds, and the 1, the 1 there means how many times we want the timer to repeat. So we only want it to go off once. So 3 seconds, and timer goes off once. Okay, then with the timer class, you add what they call an event listener to this class. So an event listener basically, as the name suggests, it listens for events. So we're working with a timer, which goes off after a certain period of time. But we have to associate, we want some code to run when that timer goes off. So we need to associate the code that we want to run with this timer event, so when the timer goes off. So this line here, myTimer add event listener. So the type of event that we're looking for is the timer event.timer. So basically when the timer goes off. When the timer goes off, we want to run a bit of code. Now this is removeCircle is a function which is further below in our class, we'll see shortly. So we want the removeCircle function to run when the timer goes off after 3 seconds. And the final bit of code here is we want the timer to start. So we've set up the timer to run, and then we want to actually start it. Okay, if we go further below, so we've got our removeCircle function. So remember, we associated that with our timer, and it's got a special, what they call this, another word for it is a signature, so a function signature. You'll notice that all timer events have this in the brackets. So the input to this function is a timer event. So all functions associated with this particular event will have this in brackets. And it's also void, so it doesn't return a value. We want to run some code in this function, but we're not returning a value from this function. So what we're doing in this remove circle function, we added the circle earlier in this code. After 3 seconds, we want to remove the circle from the stage. So remember, we're not removing directly from the stage. We're removing the circle from our class, which is display objects, but display object is contained within the stage. So it is getting removed from the stage, but in 2 steps down that parent-child hierarchy. And then we've got a trace statement which says trace remove circle. So if we can just click on our output window and run this. So we clicked on our output window so we can see the trace statements in action. Okay, so we've added the circle. 3 seconds later, gone. Remove circle.